this is Ogre Boy, and I'm going to be doing my top 10 worst superhero movies of the decade. On this list there are going to be a few movies that I actually do at least somewhat like, and everything that I don't think are absolutely terrible or anything. They're just like some of my least favorites, because most of the superhero movies that I've seen this decade are ones that I really do like and everything. I'm a big fan of the superhero genre, so that I rarely see any that I think are absolutely terrible or anything. So like I said, some of these are ones that I think are still decent movies. They just are my least favorites and everything. Pretty much the bottom from 7 to 10 are ones that I think are at least alright and everything, and then all the ones that's from up and everything are ones that I'm not real crazy for. So starting out at number 10 is Dark Phoenix. I actually thought this one was okay. It was just kind of meh. It wasn't the worst X-Men movie I've ever seen, because the X-Men's movies have had some pretty good highs and some pretty bad lows and everything, and personally I just felt like this movie was a terrible way to end the X-Men franchise and everything. It was just not a very satisfying ending to the whole series and everything, but I thought it was just an okay movie. It has some good moments and stuff, especially on the train. That train scene was really awesome, especially with Magneto and everything. He was really awesome. I just felt like this movie could have been a lot better than it was. I don't think that it's the hugest piece of garbage like a lot of people say it is and everything. I don't think it's an absolutely terrible movie. So, but yeah, so that's why it's number 10. It's not like a terrible movie, but it's definitely not a very good one either. And it's definitely one of my least favorite superhero movies of this decade, so it's number 10. And number 9 is Thor: The Dark World. I think this movie was okay. I like it more than most people do, but I also do understand most of people's criticisms, especially with Malekith. He's easily the worst villain in the MCU and one of the worst comic book movie villains of all time and everything. But there are things about it that I do like the interaction between Loki and Thor and everything. So this is just one of those that I don't think it's like a terrible movie, but like I said, when it comes to making this list, not every movie on this list are ones that I hate or think are terrible. So this is just one of the ones that I think is me. Kind of like Dark Phoenix. I think it's just okay, not great, not terrible either, but it is one of my least favorite MCU movies. It's not my very least favorite MCU movie, but it is one of them and everything. So that's why it's number 9. And number 8 is Doctor Strange. This one is one of my least favorite MCU movies and everything. I think that it's okay movie, but to me it's just really boring. That visually it's good. It has great special effects, great cinematography and stuff like that. Visually I think it's a very well made movie, and the cast is all really good in here. It's just the pacing of the movie is so slow to me. It's just and it never picks up to me. The third act is just as slow as the first 2 acts to me. I just really did not like it as much and everything, which is sad because I really do love Benedict Cumberbatch, and I think he's great as the character and everything. I loved him in Infinity War and Endgame, and I can't wait to see the next Doctor Strange movie. I'm actually really excited for that movie, but this one I just felt was a really slow and boring origin story that just could have been a lot better than it was. I just was really disappointed with it. So Doctor Strange is number 8, and number 7 is Batman: The Killing Joke. I remember I was extremely excited for this movie when it came out. I was extremely disappointed. I hated the whole story with Batgirl and stuff that they had at the beginning of the movie. The first 30-45 minutes of the movie is just I hated it. I hated the story between her and Bruce Wayne, and I just didn't really like the way they did that. And everything. Once it got to the parts where it was actually like the Killing Joke and stuff, I thought it was better and everything. But personally, I think the movie should have fully focused on the Joker. They should have like done his backstory scenes at the beginning of the movie or something, showing how he became the way he was, and then go on from the rest of the movie or something like that. It just felt like the way this movie was executed just was not done very good. The voice cast was still good though. Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill were still great as Batman and Joker. It just, the rest of the movie, the way the story was and stuff, I didn't like it. I know a lot of comic book fans didn't either. The Killing Joke is one of my favorite comics of all time, or stories, and it's one of my favorite stories. I just absolutely love it. So this movie had me really disappointed. I don't think it's extremely terrible. Like I said, 7 through 10 I don't think are extremely terrible movies. It's just not one that I think is really great. But from here on up, these are movies that I really didn't care for. So starting off at with the worst ones at number 6 is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. This movie was just not very good. I wouldn't say that I was disappointed with it when I saw it, because I wasn't really even excited to see it because of the fact that I didn't really like the other one, which I'll talk more about later, and everything. But I had hopes that maybe I would enjoy this one and everything, but it just, to me, was just not that great. Andrew Garfield, like in the first one, was okay as Spider-Man and everything, but when he was Peter Parker, he's just not really that believable and stuff. I didn't really like him as in this movie. I will say that his chemistry with Emma Stone is still pretty good though. Even though I didn't really like him, they did work good together, and I liked Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. The villains I thought were not done very well. I hated that they shoehorned in Green Goblin at the last minute, kind of like they did Venom in Spider-Man 3. It was just really convoluted, and they having him in there and Rhino, the way they were trying to set up other Spider-Man movies, and it was just a total failure and a very disappointing movie. So The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is number 6, and number 5 is Fan-4-Stick, or Fantastic Four. I don't think this movie is as bad as a lot of people do. I actually thought it was halfway decent. It could have been a whole lot better and everything. I understand completely why people didn't like it though. It totally ruins the way the comics and stuff are and everything. I completely understand why people didn't like it. Stan Lee himself was against this movie and everything, so I completely understand why people didn't like it. Now, I did like it enough that I would have been willing to watch a sequel, because the way it ended, to me, the ending of the movie is what the rest of the movie should have been. You know, they were kind of starting to work as a team and stuff. I didn't really like the way they were. You could tell they were trying to set up for future sequels and stuff, and it was not done very well and everything. And I can understand why people didn't like this movie. It is really slow paced and everything, and the special effects are not really that great. Dr. Doom was a terrible portrayal of Dr. Doom and everything, although I do think that they did Galactus even worse in Rise of the Silver Surfer. But I gotta say that Dr. Doom was not done very good in this movie and everything. The cast didn't have the best chemistry and everything, but I thought this was an okay movie, but not a great one for sure and I can't wait to see the MCU maybe finally actually get these characters right and everything, because I've read comics, I've seen cartoons and stuff. I know how the Fantastic Four is supposed to be, and this movie is not that. This movie was solely made just so that Fox could keep the rights to it and everything, and you could tell that the studio interfered way too much in this movie, and it just could have been so much better than it was. I do think that it wasn't as bad as some people say it is, but I don't think that it was very good either, and I don't deny that it's one of the worst superhero movies of the decade. So Fantastic Four is number 5, and number 4 is KickAss 2. I was very, very disappointed with this movie. I absolutely loved the first KickAss movie and everything, and I was extremely excited for this movie because not only were we getting KickAss and Hit Girl back again, we were getting to meet Colonel Stars and Stripes, and he was being played by Jim Carrey, who's one of my favorite actors of all time, and everything. I felt that he totally wasted Jim Carrey in this movie, and everything, and the whole controversy that came out about him not supporting the movie and everything after the Sandy Hook shooting, I think also kind of hurt its box office. But personally, I don't really blame people for not wanting to see this movie, because it just was not a very good movie. It was very, very disappointing and everything. Having Kick-Ass and Hit Girl not together throughout most of the movie, I thought was dumb. I hated the subplot of having her going to high school and trying to be a normal teenager and stuff. Some of the scenes were good, but a lot of them sucked and everything. And there was that really disgusting scene where she made these bullies and stuff puke, which I know they were trying to go for it being cool to stand up against bullies and stuff like that, but I just thought that was disgusting. And really, I don't even hardly remember anything about the third act of this movie. It just had a forgettable third act, and this movie just was a huge disappointment to me. So Kick-Ass 2 is number 4, and number 3 is The Amazing Spider-Man. I remember when I very first heard about this movie, I was already ticked off, because I personally loved Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies. I love Tobey Maguire, his Spider-Man, and everything. So I kind of went into this movie planning on hating it and everything, and I've gave it a couple of other chances. I've watched it a couple more times to make 100% sure that I wasn't just being blindly hating this movie because of my love and nostalgia for the original 3 and everything. I rewatched this movie a few months ago, and really the main thing about this movie is that it's super boring and everything. It takes a long time for anything to happen, and even after he becomes Spider-Man, there's not a lot of action. There's not a lot of really memorable moments in this movie. Really, the only scene that I really liked a lot in this movie was when him and the Lizard were fighting through the school and everything. I love that scene with Stanley's cameo. That's one of my favorite Stanley cameos and everything. I think that was his cameo was literally the only thing about this movie that I really loved and everything. Like I said, I think that Emma Stone was okay as Gwen Stacy, but I think that he's okay as as Spider-Man, but as Peter Parker, he just really felt miscast. He was not believable as a nerd when he felt more like a skater dude than a nerd and everything. And he just, I didn't really like it. Like I said, it has a couple of moments that I like some of the times when he's cracking jokes and stuff, like "You found my weakness." The small knives and stuff. That scene I thought was pretty well done, but really that scene and the fighting scene and Stanley's cameo and stuff in the school, those are really the only moments of this movie that I thought were really memorable or really good. The rest of the movie I just felt was terrible. So The Amazing Spider-Man is number 3, and number 2 is Green Lantern. I've only seen this movie one time, and there's only 2 things that I remember about this movie, literally, and it's that the special the CGI special effects were absolutely horrible, and the movie itself was just absolutely horrible. That's literally all I remember about this movie. It was just so bad, and it almost made my number one, but I had the same problem with this movie that I do with my number one movie, but I do remember disliking my number one more than this movie and everything. I think Ryan Reynolds tried his best with what he had to work with and everything, but he was the movie just itself was terrible and everything. It had some of the worst special effects and everything, and I'm really picky on CGI, so I think that a lot of special effects, even in some of the best superhero movies, sometimes looks really bad, but this movie had absolutely the worst special effects, I think, in any superhero movie. And like I said, it's so forgettable. I don't literally remember anything at all about this movie except the one scene from that's in the trailer where he first does the puts on the suit in front of his, or has puts on the ring and the suit and stuff in front of his friend or something. That's really the only thing about it that I remember, and really the only good things that came out of this movie to me are the jokes that they've made in the Deadpool movies, with him saying don't make the suit green or animated, and the scene at the end of Deadpool 2 when or in the mid-credits where Deadpool goes back in time and kills Ryan Reynolds before he signs the contract to be in Green Lantern. Those are literally the only things about this movie that are good, and it wasn't actually even in this movie. So Green Lantern is number 2, and my number 1 worst superhero movie of the decade is Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance. Like Green Lantern, I don't really remember anything about this movie except there was a scene where he's peeing fire and everything. It's a really stupid scene. That's literally about the only thing I remember. The CGI was absolutely terrible. It wasn't really great in the first Ghost Rider movie either, but it was even worse in this movie. And I feel like this movie just came out way too long after the first one. The first movie I thought was an alright, fun popcorn flick. It wasn't anything special. It wasn't like a great movie or anything, but I could handle watching the first one. But this movie, Nicolas Cage was just extremely terrible in this movie, and it wasn't even the funny, over-the-top Nicolas Cage terrible. He was terrible in it, and it's just easily one of the worst movies of the decade. It's probably even I'd actually probably go as far to say that this is probably the worst superhero movie I've ever seen and everything. I can't really think of any that I dislike more than it and everything. I just absolutely hate Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance. It's easily the worst Marvel movie I've ever seen, and if it's not my worst superhero movie, yeah, I'd have to say it is. It's total garbage, and one of the worst movies ever made. So Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance is easily my worst superhero movie of the decade. So let me know in the comments what what superhero movies of this decade you thought were absolutely terrible. I know I left off Suicide Squad, but Suicide Squad did disappoint me and everything, but I didn't hate it and everything. In fact, I actually kind of have a guilty pleasure feel with that movie, and I enjoy it just for being a dumb popcorn movie and everything. It's not a very great movie, it's not a very well made movie, but to me it's not bad, and I enjoy it more than all of the movies on this list when I rewatch it and everything. So that's the reason why I don't really have I didn't put Suicide Squad on there. And as far as other ones that people complain about in the DCEU, like Justice League and Batman vs. Superman, I love both of those movies, and if you've watched my top 10 best superhero movies of the decade, you would know that those were both on those lists and everything. But anyway, let me know in the comments what your worst superhero movies of the decade are, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good day, everybody.
This is the song that doesn't end. Hang on, my friend.
That's enough, guys.
Some people started singing it, not knowing what it was, and they'll continue singing it forever just because this is the song that